There we go. So three, two, and one. Well, Mayor Zacher, welcome back at Mayor's Monday here at WSAU, WSAU.com. You've survived an election day as
Yeah,
mayor.
yeah. Uh,
Not that you were sweating this one out. You weren't on the ballot. Uh,
no, but it was an exciting one nonetheless.
no, no
uh,
doubt. Yeah.
just I think the national election obviously, got everybody moving and just a lot of people coming in ahead of time to do the votes, early and get things squared away. And I will say this, a quick little story. So my son, he goes to school down in Mequon, and he failed to, and I failed to let him know to early vote up here. So he
Hmm.
ended up down there on election day, and we ended up talking. He's like, "Dad, I got to vote," and I'm like, "This is going to be tricky." And so we went through talking to their clerk in Mequon and all the ins and outs of him being able to get in there and get a ballot in hand and vote. And he worked on it for probably 4 or 5 hours to try all the different routes that he could do to get the address for the dorms that he stays at and getting on that list. Um,
Hmm.
and no matter what he tried, he couldn't do it. So my purpose in saying that is our elections are pretty tight.
Hmm.
Like that was a pretty good like close encounter experience with trying to vote, it's and all the hoops you got to jump through in order to do that. So it's good to see that the voting requirements are there and that people hold pretty strong, even though they're, in the end they wanted him to be able to vote, but they just wouldn't and couldn't let him do it. So
Yeah, indeed. And that's where it gets really tricky because if he doesn't have a utility bill or anything like that that can prove an on campus, off campus address, whatever it may be, yeah, there's probably not a whole lot that can be done. But I think absolutely hats off to you and your son for trying to work 4 hours to vote on something like this. Because as you'll hear me say always, every election, every time, make a plan, no excuses. In
yeah,
my job, I've seen too many of these elections come down to it, and this is a comprehensive list: a roll of the dice, drawing of playing card, whoever got the higher card determined
yeah,
the winner, and a coin flip.
yeah,
I've seen all three of those in local elections. So
yeah.
that's just how important it is. That's how important it is to me. I waited in line for an hour and 15 minutes, almost an hour and 20 minutes in Wausau. And I
Okay.
understand the lines were just as long down on your end as well. Wood County had about a 95% voter turnout.
Yeah, it was happening pretty good. And some people were, getting a little fidgety about it, but all in all, everybody, you just worked together and waited in the lines and hopefully had good conversations and got in and voted. And it was a great turnout. Great to see.
I actually saw somebody reading a book,
Oh yeah, taking
like
it
they
up.
had the not just on the phone, pulled an
Yeah,
actual, kids, go ahead and look this up, an actual physical book out
that's
of their
good
code.
planning. That's
Yeah,
good.
that's planning ahead right there. In line when I was waiting to vote. So, what did you learn this time around? Are you going to make any changes going forward then? Because again, like you just implied, the lines were they were pretty long wherever it is you were voting in central Wisconsin.
I don't think, we had that was actually on the east side at East Junior High, used to be the junior high building. On the west side, we didn't have any not significant lines on that. So, but that is the biggest building that we could have it in with the door, the gymnasium and all. So I don't think we would do anything different besides maybe, snake the line maybe a little bit different. But again, I would have to talk to the clerk because they did a great job. I have no complaints about it except for you can only get so many people through a polling place at one time.
Hmm.
Maybe get more people out there, but again, you have to wonder. I hope that that many people continue to vote every voting session that we have, but you never know either if people will if it was one and done because of the federal election, or if people are really waking up and realizing, like I always say, like, I'm just one of you. Like, you guys voted me to take this job for a couple of years and then you vote again to see if you want me to stick around. So it's in the end, I think people should be interested and excited about voting because it's kind of neat, like especially on this side. I joined because I wanted to learn better. I can't say I voted every year since I was 18 or every session since I was 18, but I've done as much as I could and felt, kind of disenfranchised at times. But I think the more I learned from this side of it, it's like they're just people just like us. And yeah, there's things that are happening in the government that kind of frustrate us, but we have to realize that the stuff that frustrates us are things that the people we voted on to represent us have voted on in their position over 100 years. So all these things build up over time, and if we have to vote to get rid of them now, you can't just say I don't want to do it anymore. Like there's a process to the whole
Hmm.
government, and that's part of the problem is there's so many built up things. We have no idea why they were voted on, when they were voted on, and they just build up over the years. And now it's time to get rid of them so that we can move much faster and be able to do a lot more things in the economy to be ready for the downturns. Because, we're going through a huge transition in the world right
Hmm.
now, for that matter.
Yeah, indeed. And you know all about that firsthand from being a business owner and now from what you're doing in Wisconsin Rapids as well. In, something we've talked about since you taken office, transitioning the mill. That's not going to get done quickly. You're in the process of it right
Mhm.
now. And,
Yeah.
and it's going to take 18 to 24 months to before somebody can see some real progress there at the site.
Yeah, just an update there. They really just got all the final permits to be able to do what they need to do. And that was again a bit of a process, but they're able to start testing for the asbestos that was in there and be getting some of the preliminary work done so that as soon as they got all the I's and T's finally done, they could dive right in. So now they're in there removing asbestos and moving forward. And there's a lot of interesting things there that are happening. Nothing that right now that I can speak of, but there's lots of interest in it for different things, and that can mean different things for the community. But all ultimately knowing that the buildings are going to be used, the land's going to be used, they're going to be hiring people over time. The electricity, Quebco is going to be, back up in a good position. Yeah, it's very exciting, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It takes time, and it was real exciting there for a while, getting everything, released and things happening,
Hmm.
and kind of slows back down again. And that's
Yeah.
a big part of like being patient as a mayor and finding out is not every day can be exciting, like this is what we're doing, this is what we accomplished, it's a lot of behind the scenes
Yeah.
work.
Not every day you're going to have an email in the inbox that says Metalco is interested in,
Yeah, yeah,
expanding. And again, even at that point, you're not going to know it's Metalco. You're not going to know it's Amazon. You're not going to know it's other company XYZ until you're probably 50 to 60% of the way through the process.
right. Yeah,
So
yeah, it's very interesting how all this stuff works and the dynamics and how big it all is, even at our level, to be able to market the energy and the land that we have here to companies all over the world. And to me, those doors are only opening up more and more now too, as people are understanding what's available here. So yeah, it's exciting. But yeah, we are still the government. We're kind of the outsiders to the whole thing. So again, my philosophy from the beginning was build relationships, build trust so that they're willing to communicate with us, effectively and let us know what we can share, what we can't share, and but just be a part of the conversation, and it's working out really well in that sense.
absolutely. I'm going to put you on the spot here. So, to that company that might think about the mill site, give them the pitch right now. What do they find in Wisconsin Rapids? What makes Wisconsin Rapids great? Why should they choose you?
So, it depends on what it is that who's coming and what they're asking about. If it's a big manufacturing company and they're not talking, if it's a small company and they're like, I want to move my family here, I want to bring, 5 employees here possibly, something like that, then you're talking more about the river and all the bars and restaurants that we have here and the people that are here and the ability to walk and get around and spend time on the river and all the golf courses. There is so many things that are here that are built here that are just phenomenal. But really, the one thing that I'll always say about the sites, the to bring in manufacturing is the fact that the power systems that were built in order to electrify the mills that were here is just phenomenal if you could see it and understand it from that perspective. And very few people can fully understand what it means to have the amount of electricity at our fingertips that we have waiting to plug in machinery. And it's relatively inexpensive, and some of it is going to be the hydropower, but that's not all of it. But the people that are here that run WWLC and Quebco are very, very smart people. They know how to bring in inexpensive energy, and that's the main driving force behind most any business coming into town is what's it going to cost me to run my business, and that's a huge part of it. Outside of that, it's some great land. The tough part about it, as we've always talked about, is it's what we're talking about right now. The mill site is so close to the river, and it would be nice to move it away from the river, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's a very long and expensive process that requires a lot of technology.
Yeah, it's it's
So,
it's big, and the buildings that are there are big, and it's
mhm.
yeah, it would be next to impossible to try to relocate something or move something. It's just going to stay where it is until the time comes that it isn't.
Absolutely. Well, we look forward to seeing where this goes. Again, of course, as you just implied before that, at the speed of government. But before that, something more tangible for the residents. You've got the budget process nearly completed. What have you been able to accomplish with this, your first budget as mayor of the city and not as chair of the finance committee?
Yeah, so yeah, definitely a different aspect coming from the inside. Even as chair, you're kind of on the inside, but you're not seeing the day-to-day activities that go on around the stress of money being taken away, money being, more money being brought in, more expenses coming in, and a constant juggle all throughout the year to kind of try to figure out, or really the last part of the year to figure out how you can even stabilize the budget long enough to be able to take a snapshot. And like right now, we have the snapshot that we're bringing for the public hearing tonight at 6 o'clock. But yeah, there's some bigger things that happen where um, the transportation utility that we had set up a few years back went through a snag in Pewaukee. Pewaukee had the same type of utility, and this utility was designed not around a tax, like an overall tax for everybody. It was designed on trip charges, meaning that every time you drive out of your driveway and then drive back into your driveway, having used the road in the meantime. So it was a usage tax, or I say a tax, but that's what gets the whole thing in trouble. But it's really a usage fee. Like I bought 1 gallon of water, 1 gallon of milk. This was every time you use the road, you paid some money to the road for using it. The problem comes in is that grocery stores and businesses, they have a lot more people coming into their parking lot and leaving their parking lot. But again, they wouldn't be able to get to their store or their business if they didn't have the roads to drive on. But because there's so many more trip charges, it affects the businesses more so. The other upside to that is that people in the outer communities that aren't paying taxes to the city roads but use them every day, we're contributing something by buying food at grocery stores or going to restaurants, stuff like that. So, excuse me, in the end, it was a win-win in my opinion, all the way around. But in Pewaukee, sounds like the manufacturing group of the state fought it, and they won the local court, but then they took it to the appeals court and they voted it down as being illegal. And then the Supreme Court never took it on. So it dropped back to the appeals court and stayed there as illegal. So we had to idle it for now. And then we had to make up that money because we didn't want to go back to special assessments, because
Mhm.
special assessments were back up in that ballpark of anywhere between $10,000 and $30,000 for people. And it was just getting too expensive for people to be able to afford. So we had to figure out how to work with our departments to figure out for the utilities, because really the most expensive part is when you tear out the road altogether, you replace all the utilities, electric, water, wastewater and sewer. And but we were able to work with them, communicating effectively, sitting down at the table, being respectful, and figuring out how we could have those utilities help with more of the cost of that actual roads project to cover some of those special assessments. so that we weren't going back to the old ways.
Yeah, indeed, and I know that was one of Mayor Shane's really big aspects was he wanted that utility because he says I've paid several of these and it's a big bill that you're not planned for, you haven't budgeted for, and for people on fixed incomes or seniors, it can be devastating
Yeah.
sometimes to get that surprise in the mail.
Yeah, not to mention, I guess right now the assessments came out and the houses have obviously gone up in value just because of the overall market of the country or
Mhm.
the world. Um, but at the time, you could have a $50,000 house and get a $20,000 bill for the roads, so
Right.
it was, excuse me, it was tough and it was time to move past that. So I'm glad we did, and it's unfortunate this didn't work out. I still believe that it's a good utility. We'll see what happens in the future on it.
Mhm. Yeah, we'll certainly keep our eye on that in future budgets as well. Last thing before we let you go, you're going to be inviting, speaking of using the streets, you're going to be inviting a lot of people into town later this month for the big Rekindle the Spirit parade. And I know there's something special that you're also going to be doing alongside that this year as well.
Yeah, so Rekindle the Spirit's going to be on November 27th, starting at 5:25 downtown. As always, we are setting up a time right before the traditional Christmas lights going on that we're going to light up the bridges, the Jackson Street and Grand Avenue bridge for the first time. Well, it would be the first time at night, like the grand opening. Obviously, we're going to have to test it before that. So
Hmm.
we've spent the better part of 3 months just making sure that that project is set up and all those pieces are in place. It was a little rough just because you had to close down the bridge at times or half the bridge. And so people have been patient, sometimes kind of frustrated, just about how to get around town easily enough. But those things will be done. We appreciate everybody's patience for us to be able to get that up and running. That was all set up as a part of a group that over 10 years ago started talking about how we could do this bridge lighting project that was through the leadership program at the Heart of Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce. And so, yeah, somewhere in the ballpark of 10 years later, this is happening. And so we're
Uh-huh.
inviting them to come to it and just do the big the turning on the lights on the bridge and celebrating that. And hopefully people appreciate it. Again, I know so there's always going to be controversy around the money behind it, but the project was there and the money was set aside through the TIF district that's down there. So it's not, I mean, it is taxpayer dollars, but it's a roundabout way of looking at it. I've learned a lot about that whole tool and
Mhm.
how that's used. So it'll be exciting. And then, of course, rekindle the spirit that the chamber puts on every year and have some excitement around Christmas.
Yeah, one of the great parades in the region. I've always enjoyed driving in it with the WSAU Jeep. I will not be this year. It's going to be Chris this year. Maybe
Okay.
if you ask nicely, Chris will let you ride in the Jeep with him. Maybe.
Fun.
It's a big maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Chris is just finding out about this now as he listens to it.
yeah, I
So,
won't hold my breath or anything. So, one way or the other, I think I'm going to be out there. I heard I might be wearing a fancy costume, so we'll see how that plays.
okay. All
Yeah,
right. I can respect that.
yeah, yeah. They might
Absolutely.
not want me in the car.
All right. Well, hey, Matt, we always appreciate the time. We'll look forward to chatting again next month to wrap up the year.
Sounds good, Michael. Thank you for all your work. Appreciate it.